Hey everybody, and welcome to this fancy football Premier League review of game week number 10. Um, I did really badly this week, mostly because I completely forgot that there was a Friday game, and as a result, didn't change my team, and yeah, screwed up. Having said that, I don't think I would have made many changes, so I think I would have had a bad team anyway. Um, I think I was a little bit unlucky on some of the things. Funnily enough, the Friday game was Crystal Palace, who I support, but I just didn't even think until it was too late. Oh, I need to change my team. So 37 points, really bad. The only person who did anything was Grealish and Chilwell. Otherwise, pretty terrible week. So yeah, we'll kind of move on from there. If we have a look at the ASMRplays League, the highest scorer for the week, I'm seeing a 66 down here. Pretty good. 6-6 from Baccalo Express. I think it was a pretty low scoring week. 44 is a pretty poor points total. Fernandes captain, De Bruyne, Grealish, yeah. Otherwise, not really that spectacular, but certainly more than good enough to win the week there from the Baccalo Express. So well done. American as well. So there you go. Americans do know about football, guys. They do. So let's have a little look, I guess, about the results that have just gone. I guess we've got to talk about Crystal Palace v Newcastle. Not particularly happy about this one in any way, shape or form. As a Crystal Palace fan, this was atrocious. We've had 2 games in a row now where when I look at it and go, we played against Burnley and Newcastle, both teams which are kind of struggling, definitely Burnley struggling, but Newcastle, I wouldn't say struggling, but they're not one of the best teams in the league, right? So to lose both those games, I think is really, really poor and very worrying, definitely. Absolutely not having Zaha for these games is really bad. We should still be better. The team on the pitch should be good enough to get something. It's just, very, very disappointing is what I would say. Fair play to Newcastle. They were the better side. Like, you can't even argue that. They haven't played brilliantly in the last few weeks. And, I think some of their supporters have been quite annoying, but, 14 shots, 7 on target to our, 12 and 3 is much better. And yeah, we had the possession, but that's not how we like to play, is it? So absolutely fair play to Newcastle. Deserve to win the game. Not happy about it. It puts Crystal Palace in 15th. Yeah, we're 7 points clear of relegation, but that can be eaten up pretty quickly. We're playing West Brom next. If we lose to West Brom, we're going to get sucked down into this relegation battle because, they'll be on 9, we'll still be on 13, but that's only 4 points, isn't it? So we shouldn't lose to West Brom. We really, really shouldn't lose to West Brom, but Zaha will be back. And yes, it absolutely worries me that we seem to be completely a one-man team with Zaha. Having said that, I think we do still have players who are a bit rusty and coming back. Benteke looked decent enough when he came on. He's still coming back from injury. Batshuayi is still trying to fit in. Sacco and Tompkins have just come back from injury as well, so we're starting to work out what our best team is. I'm not worried at the minute because I still do believe that Fulham and West, despite Fulham's 2 wins in 4, which is actually very impressive, and certainly the win against Leicester is very impressive, I still believe that those 2 teams will go down, and then I think it's one of possibly this bottom 6. I think Palace will have enough to get out of it. We'll see. You never know. It's way too early to tell, isn't it? Like, we're a quarter of the way through the season, basically. This is not how it will stay. We'll see. And who knows? I mean, we're on the same points as Arsenal at the end of the day. Exactly the same, 4, 1 and 5. We've scored more goals than Arsenal. Look at that. I mean, we have scored more goals than Arsenal. And we are not scoring goals very well. That says it all, I think, there. So, we'll come on to Arsenal. Don't you worry. We will come on to Arsenal. But yeah, very, very disappointed with that, actually. And it is worrying, I think. we, we clearly need something to happen. The easiest thing you can do is change the manager, right? So that's why everyone always clambers for it. And short term, you usually get success, and we've seen it at Palace. Not necessarily in the belief that changing Roy Hodgson currently is the best option. I think we won't go down if we have Roy Hodgson. I don't think we're going to have a great season. I definitely think he needs to go at the end of the season, though. We need to be, and I think they are looking at who those candidates are. I have a sneaky suspicion Eddie Howe might be lined up. I saw he's taking a bit of time out at the minute. He was on Monday Night Football, I think, on Sky Sports, and I think it would be a really good appointment and one I'd be happy with Eddie Howe. I know it's strange because you're like, well, he got relegated with Bournemouth, but I do believe there were circumstances with that Bournemouth team where you can turn around and go, listen, that guy was in Premier League for, I don't know, what, 8 seasons, 7, 8 seasons, something like that. Kept them up when they had no right to be staying up for a lot of those seasons. Got them to some really good positions in the league. Didn't spend a huge amount of money. Yes, some of his transfers did not work out, but some of them did. And, if you're just going to take that one season as his whole legacy, then that's incredibly unfair, isn't it? Because he worked wonders at Bournemouth. So I wouldn't be disappointed to see Eddie Howe. I think I just have a sneaky suspicion like there might be a case of like, Eddie, let's get to the end of the season. You take a bit of time out from the game, and Royal will, steer us into the end of the season, and then we can do a bit of a rebuilding process, which I think we need. We have the money to do to a certain extent, not to replace the whole team, but like, to get in some players who a new manager might want to get in. I've often felt like that might have been one of the reasons why Palace hasn't necessarily spent that heavily. Like, sure, we brought Eze, but it was 20 odd million, which is a lot, but it's kind of peanuts in modern times, isn't it? Really, we got Butland for next to nothing. We got Batshuayi on loan. We signed Cahill on a free. We got Ferguson for a few mil, I think, from Tribunal. When he comes back from injury, we haven't been spending big in the last few seasons, and I have this feeling it might be because the board are trying to save up a quote unquote war chest. I hate that term for a new manager to come in and take over, and they're just trying to, I guess, get through this really odd, strange COVID time, with Roy in charge, and then look and see who's there and plan for the future. That's what I hope is happening. Whether that's happening, I mean, who knows? I think Palace are a pretty well-run club. So I do think that Steve Parish is no idiot, and he knows football very well, and he knows that Roy Hodgson is not the future of Crystal Palace Football Club. Even if Roy Hodgson, if we were in 4th right now, I'd still be saying we need to replace Roy at the end of the season. The guy's in his 70s. Like, something needs to happen. So we'll see anyway. We'll see what happens. So Brighton and Hove Albion versus Liverpool on the Saturday. A late Brighton and Hove Albion penalty after they missed one already from Neil Maupay, missing it. All the Liverpool, all Klopp, everyone that getting up in arms about VAR, all this type of stuff. I mean, listen, for all the times it will hurt them, I'm sure it will help them as well this season. It's when you look at it in the context of, Liverpool were leading for, from the 60th minute onwards, they didn't play well. Like, 2 shots, 6. I think Brighton thoroughly deserved the draw in this game. But, Liverpool have been ravaged by injuries. We all know this, as have a lot of teams, to be fair. But Liverpool particularly so. I think they've just had some more, I think, from their game in midweek against who did they play? I can't remember now. Ajax. I think Alisson got injured again. So that's not good for him. He is like the most injury-prone goalkeeper I've ever seen. Goalkeepers usually never get injured. Like, occasionally they'll have like one big injury or something like that, or get clattered in the match or something. But Alisson does seem to be out a lot for a goalkeeper since he's arrived at Liverpool. It's a weird one, but they I would honestly turn and say they'd probably be happy with a draw coming out of that. It keeps them in the title race after 10 games. Whatever you want to say about they should have won or whatever, at the end of the day, um, they are, uh, on the same points as Tottenham at the top, 2 points clear of Chelsea, 4 points clear of fifth place. And if they can hang on in there and be thereabouts and probably get through to January, maybe sign a player, have some of those players come back from injury, have a bit of breathing space potentially with fixtures. I don't know how it's going to really work. To be fair, I don't know if there ever will be breathing space this season, but maybe then they can kind of push on. But they've just got to hang on in there, I think, at the minute, which is what I think, to be fair, they are doing. Brighton, I think, will be happy with the point because not many people would have said they would get much from that Liverpool game. I think on paper, they've had some draws where they should have won games all season. We talked about it, and realistically, that could have been one of them there where they should have won it. They missed a penalty, could have been 2-1. And I'm worried it might come back and haunt them. They look like they're too good and too well organised and they have too good a style to go down. But we've seen it before happen over and over again, and I worry about them because I think their squad is quite thin. I mean, when you look at who they have to bring on off the bench, there's a few players there, but there's not a huge amount. I don't feel like they've been hit too badly by injuries, but if they get one or two defenders out, Mopé gets injured or whatever, you feel like they might really start to struggle a little bit, a la Bournemouth, I guess, last season. And I don't think they have a plan B to win games, so I worry for them. They're 4 points off relegation at the minute, and you don't really go, they've been miles better than West Brom and Fulham this season, but they don't have a lot to show for it, do they? So, Southampton next, which is a tough match for anyone. Even though they lost that last game, they'll be looking to get some, it's also a kind of a derby, a South Coast kind of game. They're quite far apart, Southampton and Brighton, but, we have weird derbies in England, don't we? So it's not really a derby, but it's geographically similarly located, I guess would be the best way to talk about it. City beating Burnley 5-0, which is what City do. I think this was like the third time in a row, fourth consecutive home 5-0 win against Burnley. I mean, maybe do something different next time. Just try doing something different. Eddie Pope not in goal. Feel sorry for Bailey Peacock-Farrell. You come in, Eddie Pope's injured or suspended, something like that. I can't remember. I think injured. You're playing against City, who haven't been in the greatest form this season, and you get hammered 5-0. Mahrez hat-trick, Mendy, Ferran Torres. City showing they still do have quality about them. They're still, in my opinion, they're still going to be pushing up there. As for whether or not they can maintain its consistency, I know Aguero kind of took another knock and was out for this game. But when you look at that bench and you go, you've won that 5-0 and you have Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden and Raheem Sterling on the bench. Aguero injured. That's scary stuff, isn't it? Is this going to be a turning point for City? I don't know. I mean, they drew midweek with Porto 0-0 in the Champions League, which saw them top the group, so that's good. They don't have to worry about their next game. They can just play the kids or whatever. I think they'll be there or thereabouts. I don't know if they're going to be able to make a title challenge, but I mean, let's look at it now. They're 6 points off it. That's not unsurmountable. On form, you'd say they're not going to be able to mount a title challenge this season, but form is temporary. Class is permanent, as they say, and City have a lot of class, so let's not write them off just yet. They'll take a lot from that 5-0 win, I'm sure. As for Burnley, keeps them in the bottom. I worry for them this season. I've said before that I think that Sean Dyche has taken them as far as they can go, really. He's performed miracle after miracle, keeping Burnley there, even getting them into Europe. And I just don't think that he can go any further with them. I don't know who can, unless they're prepared to really invest in that team, because they literally didn't spend a penny this season, and that is incredibly poor. Yeah, I know that they're not a huge brand, but one player. Come on, you must be able to afford that, surely. Um, yeah, they have a game in hand, which would see them come out of the relegation zone. But 6-2-1. It's not looking good. I think that they'll be in the relegation battle this season for sure. Excuse me while I have a drink. Leeds beating Everton 1-0. An awesome long range shot from Rafinha. Interesting they made Calvert-Lewin captain. Man of the match, sorry. Again, I think Leeds thoroughly deserved this. Leeds are a really hot and cold team. Like, sometimes it really works for them in a match, and sometimes it really doesn't. I think this kind of 4-2-4, like 1-4 drawn 2, lost 4, is, I think it's going to be exactly what they get at the end of the season, as in like the same amount of wins as losses. I think they're going to finish up mid-table, which I think is a great result for them. They don't have a mid-table team. I'd say their team is definitely should be a lot lower down, and I don't mean that in any offensive way. They have some good players, but some good players doesn't make a squad. And they're winning. The Palace result was a weird one, because otherwise, if you feel like they're kind of winning the teams against the teams around them a bit, which is important. The Palace one, like, they didn't, but that's a good win against Everton, who have really dropped off in form recently, haven't they? And yeah, for whatever reason, this wasn't really a depleted Everton lineup. Defensively, maybe you could argue, but they had a quite strong midfield. They obviously had the front three they want to have. Strength in depth on the bench. We compare these benches. It is night and day, and didn't do well in the game. And fair play to Leeds. I don't think Everton. I think Everton will be around here this season, which I think if they can get some sort of stability and a platform to work from, I think if they can get into Europa League, they'll see that as a good season. I know from their early form, they were probably dreaming of Champions League football, but I think the reality is that if they can get into 6th place or something, get a Europa League, maybe a good cup run, like that would be a really good season for Everton. You can't go from being like mid to lower table for season after season to then suddenly being up the top immediately. It doesn't work like that. You have to build. You have to let your players bed in, and they do have a lot of new players. To bed in new systems, new things to work on, and they're going to have some ups and downs. So a bad loss, absolutely, but they've had some bad losses. Burnley's next, and you would bet on Everton to win that, even though, I mean, possibly Everton have worse form than Burnley, to be fair, but you would bet on Everton to win that game, I think. And as for Leeds, as I say, I think they'll finish around here at the end of the season. That's what I see. I think I worry about them in terms of actually, I'm going to change my mind. I think they're going to drop down to around here, because I worry about them being able to keep this level of intensity going for an entire season. We've seen it in the Championship drop off, and people's argument was, well, they'll do better in the Premier League because there's less games. But the problem is this season's not the case in a way of you have less recuperation time. And I think they will struggle come the other side of Christmas with some very tired legs. And they're not the sort of club to go out and just buy players. They like to have a very stable squad. So I think it could hurt them a bit. So I think they'll drop down. I don't think they'll get relegated. But I don't think that they're going to make a push for top 6 or anything like that, like some people predicted weirdly. West Brom beat Sheffield United. That's a massive blow for Sheffield United. I mean, fair play to West Brom for winning it, but Sheffield United, that's poor. I really worry about Sheffield United. They've just fallen off a cliff, and I don't know if there's a way back for them. Like, it will take a really good turnaround. I mean, we're looking at a team which is, their first 10 games, lost 9, drawn 1. There's only one team which did worse than that, and that is Crystal Palace. who lost their first 9 games in a row. No one's really talking about Sheffield United. They just expect them they'll turn around eventually. Well, you're a quarter of the way through the season. You've got 1 point. If they keep this up, they'll get 4 points all season. Think about it. Like, they are from safety. They're 6 points, which is not a unsurmountable. 2 wins, they could be out of the relegation zone potentially. But when you look at suddenly you start going, you're 12 points off 14th. You're 15 points off 9th. You're starting to turn around and go, you got to really be serious about the fact that you carry on, you will get relegated. I like Sheffield United. I like Chris Wilder. I want to see them succeed. I like what they do. I just don't know if they just suddenly lost confidence this season and it's just not worked out for them. Leicester next. I don't think they want to be playing Leicester, but I really am worried that Sheffield United are going to get relegated because it took Palace to change their manager to get out of that form. I don't know if Sheffield United will change their manager because of all he's done for them. I think they'll have faith in him and push, but what do you do at this point? I haven't got an answer of like what I would do, because you turn around and say this is a guy who brought you up from like League One, had a fantastic first season in the Premier League, one of the best ever, of a promoted club, beyond anybody's expectations on a shoestring budget, and has now had one of the worst starts in Premier League history with very understandable circumstances of it's the whole pandemic situation, no fans. Maybe they're thinking, let's wait until we start getting some fans back in. I mean, I don't think they're allowed to in Sheffield. I think they're tier 3. It's worth pointing out, if you're not in the UK and you don't know much about the tiers, they've announced that when we come out of lockdown, which is actually today as I record this, I believe, or tomorrow, something like that, might be today, fans can start attending games. So if you're in tier 1, which is the lowest tier, you can have, I think, 4,000 fans. Now, the only places in tier 1 are Cornwall, the Isle of Scilly and the Isle of Wight, none of which have Premier League like football teams. So tier 2 is, basically it's more the southern areas. So your London clubs will be able to have 2,000 fans. So Tottenham, Chelsea, West Ham, Southampton, Arsenal, Palace, Fulham, Brighton. I think that's it. And then all the other clubs won't be allowed any fans until they drop a tier. They also announced today that the vaccine apparently is to go ahead starting next week, which is good. But I don't think Sheffield are going to be getting any fans anytime soon, so I really, really am worried about them. I don't know where they're going. As I said, I don't have an answer of like what I would do. Would I sack the manager? Would I not? It's really tough. Let's have a look at what their next few fixtures are. Actually, can we go? Can we choose a team? I think they're so. Is it filtered by clubs? Here we go. Sheffield United, Leicester, Southampton, Man United, Brighton, Everton, Burnley, Crystal Palace. So you got to say that next run of like 3 games is incredibly tough for them. Really, really tough. I don't know if they'll pick up points in any of those games. On form, you'd have to say that there's no way they will. Then you're starting to go, okay, that's your 11th, 12th, 13th game. That's just under a third of the way through the season. And you might have 1 point. That's scary stuff, isn't it, actually? I don't know how Sheffield United fans are feeling, actually. I've been listening to like phone-ins and I haven't really heard anything from Sheffield United fans. I guess it's probably a bit of shell shock. You're like, well, what the hell do we do? Like, we were so good last season and now we're so bad. It's a weird one. But yeah. Let's have a look at... Have we done the rest of these yet? We have, haven't we? Yeah. As for West Brom, I still believe West Brom will get relegated. That was their first win of the season. I don't know. Maybe they'll pick up points against Palace. I wouldn't put it past them currently. Um, this is one of the matches I really want to talk about. Actually, Arsenal v Wolves. Obviously, kind of overshadowed by that horrific injury to Jimenez up front, which David Luiz going in for a header and just basically headering Jimenez's head, not intentionally or in any way, totally accidental, and unfortunately it's left Jimenez with a fractured skull, which could range from sort of 6 months out to longer, potentially, and probably one hell of a headache. Obviously, I'm glad that it wasn't anything more serious than that currently, although concussion can be seriously bad, and it's something which the Premier League does not do well on at all. The fact that David Luiz was allowed to play on until half time, and apparently the only reason they took him off at half time was because the cut was irritating him as he was heading the ball, for me is ridiculous. Like, don't fuck around with head injuries, because you don't want to have someone die for you to make a change. Most other injuries you kind of know about, but brain injuries are really, really difficult. And I just feel that, like, when there has been a clash of heads like that, there should just be a free substitute to be allowed. I think managers need to look at themselves and go, like, for me, that Arteta needs to look at himself and go, yeah, I should have just substituted David Luiz off, whether he wanted it or not, just for his safety. Like, are we really saying a football match is more important than, potentially somebody having a serious head injury, with concussion? And the thing about concussion is, the problem is, when people say concussion, there's such a wide range of what can happen. And what people don't realise is that what's more dangerous is to carry on playing if you have concussion, even if it's mild, because that will cause even more issues to you. And the fact that they have, a central defender on the bench, or just any player, like, I mean, I just feel it should be mandatory. Like, the manager should turn around and be like, yeah, I'll take my player off. It's his safety at the end of the day. Whether the player likes it or not, like, it doesn't matter, because in any other workspace you look at, okay, if I'm at work and somebody whacks their head badly enough to cut it open or whatever, they're going home. Like, there's no doubt about that. They're going home, and I'd advise them to get checked out by a doctor, and if they're feeling any sort of symptoms of concussion, I'll give them time off or whatever to do it. And yet we have this macho image of, like, football where we go, just carry on playing, it's fine. Just shake it off. He's coming off, just because you got a little cut on your head or whatever. It's utterly ridiculous. Like, people who think that, like, football is above this or whatever, it's more important, are just moronic. It's, like, absolutely moronic. And we're seeing now so many footballers suffer with dementia, which is clearly linked to heading the ball. So many of, like, famous ex-footballers now. So Bobby Charlton, I think, is one of the latest ones, and it's so clearly linked to the repeated heading they're doing. They're looking at banning heading, for kids in training. There's clearly an issue there, and people are trying to go, I don't want to see the game change or whatever. It's like, you're an absolute disgrace, because what you're put it in the sense of, like, Formula One. Okay, now, Formula One, we saw that horrific crash, at the weekend, and somehow, Grosjean managed to walk away from it with, some burns. Absolute miracle. But it wasn't a miracle, because they had this system they brought in called the Halo system, and he himself admitted he was against bringing that in, and so many of the other drivers were against bringing it in. But now he's like, I'm obviously so glad they did, because I would be dead if they didn't do this. And people need to stop asking footballers what they want, and they need to start telling them what they're doing, because no footballer is ever going to try and say, you know what, boss, I might have concussion, take me off. They're never, ever going to say that. It needs to be a law We need to take away this stigma, this shame of coming off injured or whatever. We need to take it away. And it needs to be a law, which is if you have a clash of heads, you come off the pitch, free substitute, bring on another player. They need to stop they need to stop asking the footballers, because these are not trained medical professionals. They need to start asking the trained medical professionals what's going on. Because what they would say is he needs to come off immediately. It's clear, it's ridiculous. And this isn't the only game. This is obviously a big flashpoint because of what happened to Jimenez, but this isn't the only game. This happens, all the time. And it's getting ridiculous to the point whereby someone is going to die, and only then will they bring in the law, and people will be like, oh, isn't this tragic? Oh, it's like, that's what it takes, like the death of someone to bring this in. I don't know, it's ridiculous. Yeah, as I said, they need to stop asking footballers, and they need to start telling them, in my opinion, for their own safety. Because listen, people complained in Formula One and were like, oh, well, it's a dangerous sport, that's what adds the edge, blah blah blah. Are you literally saying like it's okay if people die for entertainment purposes? Because I find that utterly moronic. It's okay if David Luiz dies because we need to get that clean sheet. It's beyond like parody, isn't it? Really, when you think of it. Anyway, back to the actual game which happened. So Wolves obviously take the lead, had a bit of a nap. Gabriel Magalhães obviously comes in and equalises, and then Podence kind of scores, and it never looked like Arsenal were going to get in this game, really. I think this is their fourth, does it say here? It's like their fourth home loss this season. No, last three. They lost their last three home games, Arsenal have. So Leicester, Aston Villa, Wolves, beat Man United, drew with Leeds. They've just looked so poor, and as I said, scoring goals is the issue, isn't it? Defensively, they're there or thereabouts with pretty much everyone else. It's pretty decent. It's fascinating as to how this has gone from a team which had this joke, this constant joke about Arsenal not being able to defend, and all they need is a couple of centre backs and they can win the league or whatever. And they tighten up the defence, and then suddenly all their attackers stop scoring. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang can't score for toffee. Everyone's saying Lacazette's finished. Nketiah, I don't know what's going on with him. Everybody's calling for what's his name, the Brazilian kid, to come back to get some goal. Martinez? No, is it Martinez? What's his name? I've forgotten now. Martinelli to come back from his injury. Willian had those great assists on the beginning and then has done nothing since. Get ready for it, fans. For Arsenal fans, he's with you for 3 years. Enjoy that. Pepe is finished, apparently. What has happened? Is it Arteta? Is it more underlying issues at the football club? Is it the players? Is it, I don't know what it is. Like, for me, I think I said from the very beginning, like, Arteta should never have been appointed manager. You've literally appointed a guy with zero first team experience to, and I'll say this, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Arsenal historically one of the biggest clubs. Monetarily one of the biggest clubs in the world, and you've appointed a guy who's never, like, if you owned a business, look at it from yourself. You own a bakery, and you're looking for someone to run your bakery, and a guy walks in, and you go, oh, okay, so yeah, I want you to take over my bakery for me and run it. It's one of the biggest bakeries in the world. We've been like that for years, and it's a high pressure job. There's a lot of stuff going on here. The guy's like, brilliant. Okay, I'd love to do this job. I've got a lot of ideas. And they're like, okay, what's your experience? He goes, well, I've never run a bakery, but I was a baker for 10 years. And they're like, sorry, why are you applying for this job? You'd be laughed out of the place. It's a completely different thing. Being a good player does not correspond to being a good manager. And he is a manager, by the way. He's not a coach. He's a manager of that football club. He got promoted at the beginning of the season, so he's managing a guy with zero experience. And it's not like on the board level, you have people who are experienced in football. You don't. You have American owners who are not experienced. And what you get is a club sliding down into oblivion. I don't think Arsenal will get relegated this season, but I don't think there's a hope in hell of them getting European football this season. They have to make a decision, I said this last week, of whether or not they want to have a long-term plan with Mikel Arteta, or they want to keep going for a short-term launch. Because the reality is, who out there is going to take on this Arsenal job? For me, it's not actually that attractive right now. There's some good players in there, but you have quite an aging kind of, you've Aubameyang who's not getting any younger. Lacazette certainly is getting younger, and there's issues there. You have a midfield that I don't know what's going on. You have the Ozil problem, which has never been sorted in years. Yes, they've invested in players like Partey, which look good and stuff like that. I know he's been out. They have some good youngsters coming through. But the reality is, like, the expectation level you have from Arsenal fans and Arsenal is to be in the top four. And that, I'm telling you now, they're not capable of doing that. Not this season, not next season. So what do you want, I guess. So I'm not calling for Arteta to be sacked. I just don't think he should ever have been appointed in the first place, like with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think it's a mistake. I'm not saying that you should exclusively give these big jobs to people, but what I'm saying is, like, if you are going to appoint somebody to this top job, you have to give them time. And I don't mean 1-2 seasons. I mean like 3, 4, 5 seasons to really see what they implement. And if you're prepared to take that hit, both financially and status-wise, fair play. If you're not, then go for an experienced manager. And I don't think Arsenal really are prepared to take that hit. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to talk about Arsenal too long. I feel like I talk about them every week. But yeah. Chelsea Spurs, quite a tight match. Obviously, you would have expected not many shots going on there. Chelsea with a lot of possession, Tottenham kind of digging in. I think both teams would probably take a draw there. I think Chelsea might be a bit disappointed, but I think it both keeps them in the hunt for the title, doesn't it? It doesn't do them any more harm, and that keeps them kind of ticking over, clean sheets. For Chelsea now, looking with one of the best defences in the league, second best defence in the league, from being the butt of jokes at the beginning of the season. Leeds next for Chelsea. That'll be a tough one, but I think they'll win it. They're a serious title contender right now. Again, a lot of the season's still to go. My money's still on Tottenham, funny enough, because I just think with Jose Mourinho, they're just equipped to battle and win the league. And I think he just has a more of a demeanour about himself where he's going to stay calm. And I don't mean on camera. I mean, he's been there, done that. He knows what happens. He knows the mind games. Frank doesn't know that pressure of competing for a title. I think if he is there or thereabouts, and Chelsea could see it through. We've seen it before where rookie managers get great results at Chelsea. Di Matteo winning the Champions League, for example. It's one of them. So yeah, we'll see. There's certainly a very good side in Chelsea. On paper, I'd probably say Chelsea's side is better. But I think on in terms of well-oiled machine, I think Spurs are getting to that point. I think injuries will play a big toll. They are obviously playing a toll on Liverpool. I think Spurs could really be hurt. Kane or Son getting injured would really, really hurt them. Listen, they've got a decent bench. Bale, Moira, Vinicius. But I really think Harry Kane and Son are just two completely indispensable players right now. Harry Kane, for me, has been the best player in the Premier League this season by a long shot. He's been phenomenal. So, and when you look at Chelsea bringing back Pulisic, Havertz, Giroud on, for Abraham, Werner and Ziyech, it's like, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. So they're there or thereabouts, but, we'll we'll see. I just feel like it's making predictions on things is so dumb right now. And even though I am making predictions, I do think it's dumb because it's a habit more than anything. But like, yeah, we have no idea what's going to be happening. We have no idea when fans are going to be fully returning into stadiums. That could happen by the end of the season. It's probably unlikely, but it could happen. We've got no idea how Europe's going to go for some of these teams. We've got no idea how injury is going to go. This is sort of season. They talk about it in the past about red zones for players where they're more likely to get injured. They're probably all in the red zone right now of likelihood of getting injured. So I just think it's really, really tough to predict anything right now. But I think both these teams will be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. Southampton 2, Man United 3. Southampton going 2-0 up and then blowing it all. Last minute Cavani. I would like to have seen Edson Cavani a few years ago in the Premier League. I think he could have been a really good signing because he does feel like a Premier League player. I can't remember how I felt about him when he signed. I always felt like when he signed, he wasn't as bad as people were making out. Like, people were making out like this guy was a joke player. And I was like, yeah, he is getting on a bit, but we've seen Man United do this before with Zlatan, with Henrik Larsson, Teddy Sheringham, signing players, towards the twilight of their career, maybe want to have a last push for something, and it working out pretty well. Listen, he may not feature in any other games this season. He will, but if he doesn't, he's contributed and won that game for them. Gave the assist to Fernandes and scored 2 goals. Like, phenomenal game for him. And he only came on in the 45th minute. That's pretty good. I have a feeling he might start the next game for them. It was obviously a brilliant comeback, and for all the shit we give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and again, like Arteta, I don't think he should ever have been appointed in the first place, but he is. He's there. You have to give credit where credit is due, and the credit is due. It was a great comeback. They didn't play well in the first half. He made changes in the second half, and those changes worked. Like, you can't argue with that, can you? He brought Cavani on for Mason Greenwood, and Cavani won the game for him. That's pretty good. Southampton should have done better, and I don't think Southampton will be challenging for league titles. They could be anywhere between 10th and 5th, but that will hurt them a little bit because they were in command of this game up until half time, and they really should have done better. But that's the way it goes sometimes. The team just gets momentum going, and whatever you want to say about Man United, they do have some very, very good footballers. Bruno Fernandes, one of them. And I think a lot of teams will be kicking themselves going, why don't we sign Bruno Fernandes? Because he's looked phenomenal. He's looked world class since he's gone to Man United. And I knew he was a good player, but I don't think he was that good. Like, he is really good. I know a lot of people go, oh, well, a lot of his goals have come from penalties, blah, blah, blah. But, like, when you see if you actually watch him on the pitch, he runs that, that midfield. Everything goes through him, basically. So he's been phenomenal for them, isn't he? Good win for Man United. I still don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should be the manager. Like, they're still in 9th. They're 2 points off Champions League, which is not terrible. But, that 1-0 win over West Brom, they laboured to, I think West Ham could beat them. We'll see, won't we? I guess, as I said, predictions at this point just seems ridiculous. But Southampton may be missing Ings a little bit, but, we'll see. Who have we got Monday? Oh, Leicester losing to Fulham. That's a bad one. You lost to Fulham, Leicester. Jamie Vardy, man of the match. They pick some weird ones, don't they? Just not Leicester's day. I think they probably could have replayed that match and probably won it, but fair play to Fulham. They scored a penalty the third time of asking, I think. Ademola Lookman may be redeeming himself a little bit. I think he's got a little way to go to redeem himself fully. I've said from the beginning, I think he's actually a really good player. And when I look at Fulham's like when I see Loftus-Cheek and Lookman, I'm like, you got some dangerous stuff there. I just don't see. I mean, Mitrovic, he is a striker who doesn't really have any movement, which is an issue. He does score goals, but he doesn't add a lot to your team in terms of movement. And yeah, I again, I don't think that Fulham are good enough to stay up, although they are out the relegation zone currently. But we'll see. Little win like that can really set you off on a little run. Let's see who they've got coming up, actually. Fulham. So they've got Man City, Liverpool. Okay, it's over. The run is over. Leicester will be very disappointed with that, I'm sure. Very disappointed. They've lost 2 in a row now. Liverpool, you could say, well, it's Liverpool, but and then Fulham, they play Sheffield United next, and if they lose that one, I'm not saying like Brendan Rodgers gets sacked, definitely not, but like that is seriously disappointing. They'll want to bounce back with a win there for sure. Sorry, I wanted results, didn't I? And West Ham beaten Aston Villa. Jack Grealish, isn't it? Yeah, it's always Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish is way too good for Aston Villa, by the way. If he doesn't move clubs at the end of the season, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, West Ham with 2 shots on target, 34% of the possession, and they win 2-1. I mean, David Moyes special. You have to say fair play to him. Like, they got the win, and they found a way to win, and they had atrocious form at the beginning of the season, and I'd written them off, certainly, and they've come right back, and they're smashing it. They're in 5th right now. They're going to give Man United a good game next time. Man United should win that, I think, but we'll see what happens. There'll be 2,000 West Ham United fans cheering them on. We'll see what happens, won't we, really? But Aston Villa, I think, they're down in 10th. I think they'll finish up around there. They've had some really poor form recently. Certainly games which they shouldn't have lost. I think that was definitely one of them. Brighton won as well, and the Southampton one they shouldn't have lost either. But Wolves next in a derby. We'll see kind of what comes about there. They're scoring goals well. Are they top goal scorers in the league? No, they're 4th top goal scorers in the league. And realistically, they don't actually leak that many either. But they're just, as I said, they've just lost some games. They're like Brighton in a way. They've just lost some games they shouldn't have, really. And they had a really good run at the beginning of the season. Then obviously they're having a shit run now. So yeah, who have they got up next? Actually, Aston Villa. So we don't know about these two sides, but basically Wolves, Burnley, West Brom, Palace. They should pick up points in those games, shouldn't they, really? You think Burnley, West Brom, Palace, they should win those games, really. We'll see anyway. But I think we're going to finish up there for now. Table, it's a fake table, as Jose Mourinho would say. I mean, it's not fake because, teams have played what they've played, and there's some teams with a game in hand. I don't think you can count too much into that right now with the form of some of these teams, but we could potentially see them all move up. Like, Man United could go on 19, which would obviously put them. Well, it couldn't put them. I don't think they would score 12 in the game, so it would put them 4th. Aston Villa could move up to 18, which would put them 5th. Man City can move up to 18, which would put them 5th or 6th. Depending on scores and stuff, probably 6th. But you can't really count that much into it right now. But it's getting back to some normality, I think, after we did see some crazy times. We didn't see that many crazy results, I think, this time around. And it's stabilised a little bit this season. But let me know your thoughts on it. I'm always interested. But till next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.